known.
It's not like the
Yeah. We're not on like the
Oscars.
Today Show or something. It's almost like it. Here we go, guys. Today is a very exciting webinar. Look who's in the house. Chef AJ, the one and only. And what do you have coming out soon?
Oh, pretty soon.
Look at what's coming soon, guys. This topic is so important, and we're going to go into detail tonight. So in the chat room, we want to hear where you guys are coming from. Let us know. We want you to answer the poll. So we have a poll of what type of diabetes are you living with. So I'm going to load that up here, and we would want to know. We want to learn about who's here. So go ahead in the chat box and write where you're coming from, where you live, and let us know what type of diabetes you're living with. We want to know. As you can see, we have some jars up top, and Chef AJ is going to explain the importance and significance of what's in those jars. We're going to go into that in detail today. So we have a lot of people registered for this event. We're really excited. Wow. So we already have 448 people joining us right now, and it's great. We're really excited. As you can see, the bananas behind. We'll move together once we get the presentation started, and you'll see the slides. But you can see I got spotty bananas in the back. You know, that's the way I like my bananas. There's all different ways to eat bananas. Cyrus likes his bananas a little bit more yellow, but I like my bananas ripe. Do you like your bananas ripe?
Yes, very ripe.
Yeah.
Otherwise, why buy?
You know, remember we did an interview and we were asking what would happen if you put a banana in an Instant Pot. Did you try it yet?
No, did you? We have an Instant Pot. Why don't we do it right now?
Yeah. Well, if we make it's not a bad idea.
In an air fryer, it would be delicious.
Yeah. Okay. We got people saying that. Look at this. Kansas, Massachusetts, New Zealand. Look at that. Look, Canada. Okay. Look at this.
Van Nuys.
Look at that. Wow. Okay,
Nice.
if you have any tech issues where you can't hear or can't see, the best thing to do is leave the room and come right back in. That's the best thing to do, and usually that will solve the problem. So we got over 559 people here.
Wow.
And let's look at the breakdown here of diabetes. We have 43% of people living with type 2 diabetes. We have 12% pre-diabetes, and then the type 1.5 is a very small percentage here. Then we have 29% who don't have diabetes.
Congratulations.
We don't want you to get that. We're going to keep it that way. We're going to keep it that way, and we're going to give you important information so you can achieve your best health, your ideal weight that you're looking to achieve. We're going to give you that information tonight. So it's going to be fun. Let's see what's going on in the chat box. Somebody from Long Island, North Carolina. Let's see. Somebody says, I can hear now. That's great. Okay. And we have someone from Wisconsin, Arizona. Okay. People are saying, now I hear you. Hi. Hello from California. Can hear now. Good. I'm glad you guys can hear. So if you can hear, I want write yes in the chat box. If you can hear us and see us, write yes in the chat box. So let us know. We have 639 people here with us. So we have seen. All right, we got a lot of yeses. A lot of yeses.
Oh my goodness.
Look, it's really crazy, guys, to see our screen. It's just like this stream of stuff just firing through a bunch of yeses. It's great. Cyrus, can you hear us and see us? I can see you, but sometimes you're frozen. Can you hear us, Cyrus? Might be on a little bit of a delay there. Not sure, but I'm very happy to see.
What's up, guys?
How you doing? Let's see. Somebody's from Montana. Knoxville, Tennessee. Okay, we're going to get started real soon here, guys. So we just want to make sure everything is working properly and everybody's good to go. So let's check in on the poll. Let's see what we got going on the poll. We have 51% of the audience has either prediabetes or type 2 diabetes, and then 33% don't have diabetes. And like Chef AJ was celebrating earlier, we want to keep it that way. We're going to keep it that way. So It's looking like Cyrus is not able to hear us. So hopefully we can get that resolved here. Mariella says, hi, Robbie, Cyrus, Kylie, Tara. Hello, Mariella. It's great to have you here. So if people say they can't see you, Chef AJ, lean in here. There we go. There's Chef AJ. The star of the show is here. She's in the house. And we're going to get started here shortly. We'll let some more people come and join us. We have 700 people now with us. That's terrific. Wonderful. And like I said, guys, we're talking with Chef AJ today about calorie density. She's going to cover the information that's coming in this book. So we are going to address that. So Chef AJ, I'm going to talk to Cyrus real quick. You talk to everybody.
Well, hi, everybody. Before we get started, I just wanted to thank Robbie Banana and Cyrus Kombucha.
Can you, I have fastest internet.
No. My book's not available yet. Very soon.
I don't know if it's on your end.
I can hear Cyrus. The book will be available now, you guys.
Yes, people can hear you on the webinar, so we're good.
Yeah, we can hear you. So I want to thank Cyrus Kombucha and Robbie Banana. I mean, Cyrus Kombucha and Robbie Banana. I'm kidding, by the way. I know them and I know their names. But I was thinking that would be cute if they were named after plant-based things. For the opportunity to participate in this webinar, because diabetes has touched my life in many profound ways. I lost a brother.
Are you there?
And my grandmother had it, and her mother had it and had limb amputation because of it. And, you know, a lot of people don't know this, but for many years I was a volunteer culinary instructor at the Braille Institute in Los Angeles. And as you probably know, most people that go blind unless they're born blind or have an accident because of type 2 diabetes. And I was teaching them plant-based cooking. And I would keep in touch with my students, and it's not the kind of disease you want to get, because if you don't reverse it now with the program that you're being offered, you end up with dire consequences, if not blindness, then limb amputation and neuropathy. And I have so many friends that have this disease, and it's not that you want any disease, but I think it might be one of the worst ones you could really get, you know?
Yeah.
So we want you guys that have it to reverse it, and those that don't have it to stay that way.
Okay, and we're about to get started. Before we get started, again, I want you guys to write in the chat box. If you can hear us and see us just fine, please write yes. Write yes in the chat box. We want to make sure we're working before we get started so everybody in the room can see and hear this important information. So I'm seeing yes, yes.
Wow, they're fast.
There's a lot of yeses coming in here. It's just a whole stream of yeses. So, okay, guys.
All right.
We're gonna take this as a sign that it's working, and we're gonna get started. We're gonna proceed here. So here we go. Let me share my screen, and we're gonna get the presentation started. So share screen, share screen, share. Play from start. Okay, here we go. All right. So eat up, slim down. And here you go.
All right. So, hey, everybody. I'm Chef AJ, and today I'm going to talk to you about my favorite topic. As Robbie said, it's called calorie density. That kind of revealed the big secret that's going to come up, but that's okay. Eat up, slim down, and get healthy. Now,
yeah,
I call this The Secrets to Ultimate Weight Loss, which is the title of my next book, which will be out very, very soon. And I feel this is something that I know a little bit about, and here's why. If you look at the picture on the left of me, that was taken in 2003 when I was 43 years old and weighed 165 pounds. I'm wearing a brown shirt and I'm standing next to an 800-pound brown cow. The cow's on the left, I'm on the right. That usually gets a big laugh in person, but I can't hear you guys, so I'll have Robbie laugh for you guys.
There you go.
The photo on the right was taken in 2013 when I was 53 years old and weighed 127 pounds, and I'm now 58 and weigh 117. I was fat from the age of 5, and by the age of 11, I was actually obese, weighing 160 pounds, and I was not yet even 5 feet tall. And in my 20s, I got to be about 200 pounds. I don't have photos of that time because all of my photos were destroyed in the big earthquake of '94. But if I get back on screen, I'll show you a pair of shorts that I used to wear when I was at my highest weight. I know there's a lot of people out there telling you what you need to do to lose weight, but how many of them have actually ever been overweight or obese like I was, or suffered from severe food addiction or emotional eating? Well, I suffered from all 4 of these conditions until I was about 52 years old. until I learned the secrets to ultimate weight loss, which I'm excited to share with you today. But the interesting thing is what I'm going to tell you need to do to experience ultimate weight loss is pretty much, if not exactly, almost exactly what Cyrus and Robbie are going to tell you guys to do to reverse your diabetes. And what all the plant-based doctors will tell you to do for just optimal health, disease prevention, and disease reversal.
Okay, so I'm going to give you a brief story, a little bit about myself here. So my name is Robbie Ribeiro. I'm the co-founder of Mastering Diabetes with Cyrus. And I was diagnosed with type 1 diabetes at age 12. So that was over 18 years ago now. And in the beginning, I was following the standard American diet, and I was suffering from allergies, acne, plantar fasciitis, and it was not a very good time of life, just going through those things, especially as a teenager, dealing with serious acne. That was really rough. So I tried all kinds of medications. I tried microdermal treatments. I tried Accutane, which is a serious drug, and nothing really solved that particular problem. But the most important thing is I was trying different diets to try and make sure I was having type 1 diabetes under control and really managing my blood glucose with precision, and it wasn't happening. So I eventually came across the low-fat, plant-based whole food diet in 2006. So that was over 11 years ago. And I have been eating this way ever since and just loving life. And we are super passionate about sharing that here at Mastering Diabetes. It's a picture of me eating a bunch of figs. And again, this is going to fit in perfectly with this talk of why eating something like that actually makes sense and is okay. And after 11 years, living with diabetes and eating nothing but fruits and vegetables, I've had A1Cs between 5.7 and 6.6% the entire time. All right. Hopefully we can hear Cyrus.
Hey, can you guys hear me right now?
Yeah, we sure can.
Yeah.
So I don't think you can hear us, but we can hear you. That's the interesting part.
Okay, fantastic. So my name is Cyrus Kambata, and I was diagnosed with type 1 diabetes at the age of 22 when I was a senior in college. I was going to Stanford University at the time, and all of a sudden I noticed that I was very thirsty and that I had no energy. So I checked myself into the hospital. They diagnosed me with type 1 diabetes and 2 other autoimmune conditions, which is Hashimoto's hypothyroidism, as well as alopecia areata, or alopecia is why I have no hair. So within a short span of time, I ended up developing 3 autoimmune conditions at a young age. So I looked for alternatives to try and understand how I could eat. I ate a low carbohydrate diet for the first year, and it made me feel terrible. I had no energy. I could not exercise, and my blood glucose was all over the place. So I switched to eating a low-fat, plant-based whole food diet, and the results were practically instantaneous. I was able to reduce my insulin usage. Instead of my insulin usage going up like I had expected, my insulin usage came down. And as a result of that, I am now capable of eating very large quantities of carbohydrate-rich foods like fruits and potatoes and squash and corn. And I eat approximately 900 grams of carbohydrate per day. And my current A1C is approximately 5.7%. And I've been doing this for 14 years now, and I feel like $1 million.
Okay.
Terrific.
Take it over.
And it's so great to know that the same way of eating that I use to lose 50 pounds and keep them off is the same way you and Cyrus eat to manage your diabetes, and other people are eating to reverse their heart disease and autoimmune disease. So we don't need a bunch of different diets. The low-fat, whole food, plant-based diet, it really is a one-size-fits-all. It just so happens that it also works beautifully for weight loss. And the reason is because of the 2 words you see on the screen. Those really are the 2 words I can distill the secrets to ultimate weight loss to, because a lot of people think the secret to weight loss, those 2 words are eat less, exercise more, or gastric bypass. But the truth is the secret to weight loss, disease prevention, disease reversal is calorie density. So what's calorie density? Well, calorie density simply means calories per pound of food. And it's not about counting calories, weighing and measuring your food on a plate, counting carbs or points. You know, let's face it, guys, diets don't work. 98% of people that go on a diet and lose weight through a great deal of suffering and deprivation gain it all back within 2 years, about 66% within the first year and another 22% within the next year. Calorie density isn't about memorizing how many calories in a cup of blueberries or a half a cup of rice. To understand calorie density and implement it, you simply have to know the average calorie density of just a few food groups. And we're going to teach you what those are in just a moment. So where I learned about calorie density, believe it or not, was from this book that I found one Friday night when I wandered into a $1 bookstore in Burbank after a movie. It's called Volumetrics, and it's written by Dr. Barbara Rolls. Dr. Rolls is a researcher at Penn State University who studies human eating behavior in her lab at Penn State. And she's done more research on the field of calorie density than probably any other person that's ever lived. I actually had the privilege of interviewing her on my podcast. But there were already several best-selling plant-based books written on the subject of calorie density that I actually had on my bookshelf, but that were not yet read by me. One of them was called Eat More, Weigh Less by Dr. Dean Ornish, the first person to successfully reverse heart disease with a low-fat plant-based diet. That was written in 1980. Another best-selling book written on the topic of calorie density came out in 1985, a bestseller by one of my heroes, Dr. John McDougall, and it was called the McDougall Program for Maximum Weight Loss. But it wasn't until I read this book by Dr. Rolls that the other two books started making sense to me. Because I'm a person that needs to see pictures, and we're going to have a lot of pictures at the end of this presentation. Because if you look at the book right now, you could see that for the same amount of calories in a very, very small couple of bites of a hamburger, you could have a huge bowl of a vegetable soup. And Dr. Rolls had lots of visual representations in her book that helped me really understand calorie density. For example, for the same amount of calories in 2 cups of grape, you would only be able to have a mere 1/4 cup of raisins. And what is going to fill you up more? You see, what Dr. Rolls discovered is that all human beings, actually all species, but all human beings eat roughly the same amount of food per day by weight. And that's about 3 to 5 pounds of food. Now, that doesn't mean I eat as much as, say, a vegan bodybuilder, but whatever amount of food you're eating right now, whether it's 3, 4, or 5 pounds, you are doing that consistently. And so if you want to keep eating the same amount of food that you're eating now without going hungry, or maybe even more food, you simply have to change the calorie density of the food that you're eating every day. And if you do that by as little as 500 calories a pound, you could safely, easily, deliciously, and sustainably lose about a pound a week. And slow weight loss is probably the best because when you lose weight quickly, as you do on many of these other weighing and measuring extreme programs where you're cutting out entire food groups like carbohydrates, you will lose weight quickly, but it will come back even more quickly and then some. Because anytime you eat under the hunger drive, less food than your body desires and requires, it's going to be a disaster. And you're going to learn that carbohydrates are to our hunger drive what oxygen is to our breathing drive. And any plan that has you limiting carbohydrates is not only not going to be enjoyable, but it's going to be completely unsustainable because you cannot maintain a diet style that keeps you hungry all the time. The other thing that Dr. Rolls discovered is that satiety, that feeling of fullness you get in your tummy that tells you to stop eating, is not based solely on the calories of the food, but on the weight and the volume of the food. And you're going to see that makes a big difference when we make our food choices. So what we're going to do right now is create a calorie density chart. And foods range in calorie density from about 100 calories per pound to 4,000 calories per pound. So there's a 40-fold difference in the calorie density of food. Now the foods in green like a stoplight means go. These are the healthiest foods on the planet, also the most nutrient rich, the foods lowest in caloric density, and you can eat these as much as you want. And this corresponds with the Mastering Diabetes program because my green foods are their green foods. We're completely in agreement. The foods in the red are foods that I recommend no one ever eat, especially people that have a lifestyle disease or are trying to lose weight. And they also correlate with the red foods in the Mastering Diabetes program. The only difference is because purple is my favorite color, their yellow or caution foods, which are like the occasional perhaps foods. I put in purple just because purple is my favorite color. So let's start right now. The foods that are 100 calories per pound, the food group that is lowest in calorie density, are the non-starchy vegetables. And this is pretty much any vegetable you could imagine, with the exception of, say, corn, which is actually a whole grain. Parsnips, I believe, are a starchy vegetable, and things like potatoes, which are tubers. But pretty much any vegetable you can imagine is a non-starchy vegetable, and it averages about 100 calories per pound. That's raw. If you cook it and cook out the water, it may increase it to about 200 calories per pound, but that's not really significant for either health or weight loss. So here's a photo of what some non-starchy vegetables might look like. But if you look at the photo, you might notice that some of the things in the photo are actually botanically fruits. So things like eggplant, tomato, zucchini, cucumber, okra, bell pepper. We think of them as non-starchy vegetables because we tend to eat them in a savory way, but botanically, because they have seeds, they're actually fruits. And believe it or not, they're only 67 to 72 calories per pound. Now, if you were to Google non-starchy vegetables, you'd get a list that looks something like this. And you could literally eat a different non-starchy vegetable every single day without repeating. So really, the first secret to ultimate weight loss after calorie density is to eat more vegetables. But the problem is in this country, we really don't eat very many vegetables. You see, Americans eat over 92% of their calories from animal products and processed food, and less than 10% of their calories from fruits and vegetables. As a matter of fact, it's so bad in this country that Congress has decided that French fries are a vegetable and that pizza is a vegetable because of the small amount of tomato sauce. Most Americans eat maybe 3% of their calories from vegetables, and some Americans don't eat any vegetables. The idea of eating vegetables has actually gotten a little bit popular because Conan O'Brien has said that for the first time since 2007, the FDA has actually approved a new device to treat obesity, and that this amazing breakthrough is called a vegetable. And it's really true, guys, because of these ye may freely eat. With a calorie density averaging 100 calories a pound, you simply cannot overeat on vegetables. Imagine that you weighed 150 pounds. There's a concept known as the BMR, the basal metabolic rate. Now that's the amount of calories you need to consume each day if you are at total rest, just to beat your heart and breathe your lungs. Well, that's about 10 calories per pound of body weight. And if you weighed 150 pounds, you would need at least 1,500 calories a day just to support your bodily and life functions. Well, how many of you think you could actually eat 15 pounds of non-starchy vegetables a day? I eat about 4, and I'm pretty full and eating all day. You see, vegetables are mostly water. Some vegetables are actually 97% water, and fiber, vitamins and minerals and phytochemicals and antioxidants and micronutrients. You actually almost burn up more calories that are in the vegetables just by the chewing and digesting of them. So the idea is to make sure that whatever you eat, that at least half your plate at every single meal, even breakfast, is non-starchy vegetables. Because what you'll do is you will lower the average calorie density of every single meal by making sure that at least half your plate is non-starchy vegetables. There is one problem with eating vegetables, though, because your doctor will probably say something like this: stop eating so many vegetables. I can't seem to find anything wrong with you. Because as luck would have it, the food that is lowest in calorie density is also the food that's highest in nutrient density. So it's a win-win situation. You know, a lot of people don't eat vegetables, and they tell me it's because they don't like vegetables. Maybe they weren't given them growing up, or their mom didn't make them in a manner that was delicious, or overcooked them, or things like that. But the truth is, you can actually train your body to crave healthy food. And whether it's a healthy food or an unhealthy food, what you eat today, you will crave tomorrow. And it takes about 15 tries of a new food for it to become a preferred food. You know, there's really only one taste preference that's actually inherent in the human being, and that is breast milk. Everything else is learned. So you can learn to love vegetables by eating them. And when you see what they do to help reverse your lifestyle disease, to help you lose weight if you need to lose weight, balance your brain chemistry if you suffer from food addictions, you will absolutely learn to love them. And I can help you with some of my recipes so that they can taste absolutely delicious. You know, somebody once posted this on my Facebook page. No one has ever gotten fat by eating too much kale. And it's absolutely true. You really need, whatever you are in your journey towards optimal health and healing, is to increase your consumption of non-starchy vegetables. And greens are probably the best, especially if you're somebody that suffers with cravings or food addictions, because there's actually compounds in the dark green leafy bitter vegetables that have been proven to turn off the hunger switch and fight cravings for unhealthy foods. But we want you to eat your vegetables, not juice or blend them, and I'll explain why in just a moment. But next we'll move on to the food group next highest in calorie density, and I'm rounding up to 300 calories per pound, and that is fruit. Robbie's favorite food group. And I often use Robbie in my example when I give this lecture. Now, the truth of the matter is I've rounded up because most fruits average about 200 calories per pound, especially the lower glycemic fruits like the berries and the apples. And I already mentioned to you that there were 6 fruits that were only 67 to 72 calories per pound. But to compensate for some of the tropical fruits or fruits that have a little bit less water, like the banana, I've rounded up to 300 calories per pound. Now, if any of you are familiar with my story in my first book, Unprocessed, I was an obese sugar addict at the beginning of colon cancer, and I didn't eat any fruits and vegetables until I was 43 years old. For breakfast, I had a Coke Slurpee. For lunch, I had a Dr. Pepper. And even though I've been vegan for 41 years, for the first 26 years, all I ate was candies, cakes, cookies, pies, and ice cream. I thought Skittles were a fruit. Those were the only color I ever got. I didn't think fruit was sweet enough, but when your diet is made up mostly of sugar, it isn't. But now when I look at that slide, I practically salivate because fruit is really nature's candy. It's really the most delicious thing you can eat. And it's something you don't need to be afraid of, either for weight loss or reversing your diabetes, as Robbie and Cyrus have proven. But we want you to eat your food whole, not juiced or blended, especially if you've got a lifestyle disease and are trying to lose weight. And here's why. So imagine that these 2 glass jars were your stomach. Your stomach is about the size of a cantaloupe. It holds about a liter of food, 4.22 cups approximately. Apples are about 200 calories per pound. So I filled the glass vial on the left with 500 calories worth of apples. So in this case, it was 6 apples. It could be 5 or 8, depending on the size of the apple. Now, other than Robbie, most people can't really eat 6 apples in one sitting. Most people. I tried. I got through 2, and I could have a couple bites of the 3rd, but most people can't. But even if you could, it would be a lot harder to eat those 6 apples than it would, say, to drink the 3 cups of apple juice from what it's made from. Now, here's the thing. When you juice your fruits or your vegetables, you're removing the most important component of the food, and that is the fiber. Fiber is not only important to every single bodily process. It helps flush out toxins and removes waste and cholesterol. It actually tricks the brain into have you thinking it's full. Fiber is so important because fiber that's in the food, when it's combined with the water that's in the food, creates bulk. And bulk is what creates satiety, that feeling of fullness that tells you to push away from the table and stop eating. You would get pretty full eating 6 apples, probably after 1 or 2, but it would be pretty easy to drink that much apple juice. The other reason we don't want you to juice your fruit and we want you to eat it whole is because when you remove the fiber, what happens is that you make it so much easier to absorb into your bloodstream, which means that you are now raising your blood sugar much more quickly than the whole fruit. And then what is also happening is when your blood sugar gets raised quickly because of the lack of fiber, your insulin gets raised more quickly. And insulin is the hormone that is responsible for driving fat into the cells. So we want you to know that for weight loss, liquid calories, regardless of their source, whether it's juices or smoothies or designer coffee drinks or alcohol, liquid calories are just not favorable for satiety because they're missing the fiber. And if you don't remember anything from this presentation, one of the things I really want you to remember that the next secret to ultimate weight loss is that fiber plus water creates bulk, and bulk is what creates satiety. And that's going to be really important for you to feel full and satisfied after eating. So what about smoothies? Well, this isn't a smoothie. This is applesauce, but it's the same idea. I took the same 500 calories worth of apples, removed the core, and blended them in my Vitamix blender. And I love how Dr. Esselstyn says, you know, we didn't exit our mother's womb clutching the sharp blades of Vitamix. We already have 32 of the best juicers and blenders right in our mouths. They're called our teeth. Now, it is much better to eat a green smoothie or have applesauce than the apple juice because the fiber is still intact. But the problem is the Vitamix has greatly reduced the volume. And so when you reduce the bulk like this, you reduce satiety, and it's just too easy to overeat and you don't feel as full. Now, the fruit puree or the smoothie will not raise your blood sugar quite as quickly as the juice because the fiber is still there, but it still raises it much more quickly than the whole apple will. So when you eat, you want to ask yourself, first of all, is the food from a plant? Is it from a whole plant? And then you want to ask yourself, is the fiber and the water intact? And then if the answer is yes to all those questions, then and only then should you eat it. So what about dried fruit? There's nothing wrong with eating dried fruit occasionally for most people. But the problem is look what it did to the volume. Now, I also have a machine at home called a food dehydrator, and I sliced those 500 calories worth of apples on the sharp blade of my mandolin and dehydrated it, and I got slightly less than 2 cups of dried apple rings. Now, the fiber is still intact. That's great, but what's missing is the water. And without the water, it's just too easy to overeat. And in terms of calorie density, apples are only 200 calories a pound. But dried fruit, like raisins and dates and dried apples and dried apricots, these are 1,300 calories per pound. They're more than 6 times as calorically dense. So if you look at all 4 jars together, you can see these are all 500 calories worth of apples, the whole apple, the apple juice, the apple sauce, which would be similar to the green smoothie, and the dried apples. And you need to ask yourself, which is going to fill me up more? You know, I'm not against, that's my dog Bailey, and I apologize. She's barking because she agrees with everything I'm saying. You know, I'm not against green smoothies. Sometimes I'm at an airport and there's a Jamba Juice and I'll ask them to make me a smoothie with some kale and blueberries and water. But you know, after I stopped eating sugar, I drank a green smoothie every day for about 8 years. And it was certainly better than my breakfast of a Coke Slurpee with 8 pumps of vanilla syrup, but I couldn't lose any weight. And when I went to the True North Health Center in Santa Rosa, California in January of 2011 as a patient, Dr. Doug Lyle explained to me why. And he told me that when I got home from True North, that he wanted me to make my green smoothie for breakfast, but to put everything in the blender, but not blend it. And at the time, my green smoothie was a ½ pound of spinach or kale, a cup of unsweetened almond milk, 2 cups of frozen blueberries, a frozen banana, a tablespoon of flaxseed. It was about 400 calories, and sure, it was made from all healthy ingredients. But when I put it in the blender but didn't blend it and put it in a bowl, can you guess what happened? I couldn't finish it. I couldn't eat the whole thing. And so that's the reason we don't want to juice and blend our food or dehydrate it, especially if we're not in optimal weight yet or have a lifestyle disease. We want to eat our whole food and eat it whole. So the next food group is 400 to 600 calories a pound. But what I want to say here is even if you only ate fruits and vegetables, and you don't have to, this program allows starch, but I know Robbie chooses to just eat non-starchy fruits and vegetables, and there's people in the world that do that. For example, Mark Huberman, the head of the National Health Association, who I interviewed last week, was raised the same way Robbie eats, and he ate that way, I believe, the first 35 years of his life until he had his first baked potato. But the point I'm trying to make is if you keep the calorie density of the food you eat to 300 calories per pound or less, fruits or vegetables, it is absolutely impossible to have a lifestyle disease or be overweight. It is impossible because the people that follow a fruitarian diet or an 80-10-10 diet style founded by Dr. Doug Graham, or people that follow a low-fat, raw vegan style, choosing to eat only fruits and vegetables, if you look at them, they are the leanest people on the planet. Not a single one of them is overweight. It is impossible. But you don't have to just eat those two food groups if you don't want to, because the next food group is pretty delicious, and it happens to be my personal favorite food group. And what that is what Dr. McDougall would call the starch, or the unrefined complex carbohydrates. I know a lot of people think the only way to lose weight or reverse a disease because of the popularity of these diets is to be on a low-carb diet. And you may have some marginal benefit in your numbers, but you'll be very unhappy. You'll be constipated. You'll have bad breath, and you'll be actually making yourself very sick. You know, carbs are bad when they're refined carbs, like sugar and flour and alcohol. But unrefined complex carbohydrates should be at least 80% of your diet. And all successful populations throughout human history and in parts of the world today that are free of the lifestyle diseases that plague Americans, like diabetes, heart disease, autoimmune disease, and many cancers, eat a diet that's high in unrefined complex carbohydrates. The longest lived people in the world, according to the Blue Zones, are the Okinawans in Japan. They eat something like 72% of their calories from sweet potatoes. They also eat a very low-fat diet as well. So there's a big difference between complex carbohydrates when they're unrefined and when they're refined. Now, 400 calories per pound, we have potatoes, all kinds of potatoes, including sweet potatoes. They're actually really about 350 to 375 a lot of the time. And we also have all the wonderful winter squashes like acorn, Hubbard, kabocha, delicata, butternut squash. These are about 400 calories per pound. At 500 calories per pound, we have all whole grains, whether they contain gluten or not. Corn, quinoa, technically a seed, teff, millet, amaranth, oats, all the white rices, wild rice, black, red, white rice. These are about 500 calories per pound. And at 600 calories per pound, we have legumes, 550 to 60, beans, split peas, and lentils. Now, I didn't invent calorie density. It's been around ever since food's been around. But what I've added to this conversation, which has helped many of my clients, is a vertical red line. You know, one day before I had PowerPoint, I was giving this presentation to a new client, writing all the information out on a whiteboard. And after the hour was up, she looked at me quizzically, scratching her head and said, "Now, what am I supposed to eat again?" And out of frustration, I took my red Sharpie and drew a vertical red line and said, "Just eat to the left of the red line." Well, as luck would have it, the research that has been done in this field, the work of Dr. Rolls, corroborates that if you keep your average calorie density of the food you eat to 567 calories per pound on average, most people can eat a style known as ad libitum, as much as they want, as often as they want, whenever they want, until comfortably full, which is not Thanksgiving full that I'm so stuffed I'm going to throw up, and not only lose weight till they get very close to their ideal weight, but are able to easily maintain that weight. And the foods that I have to the left of the red line, my green foods, also perfectly correspond with the green light foods in the Mastering Diabetes program: fruits, vegetables, whole grains, and legumes. Just to give you quickly some examples of what these foods look like, these are recipes from my new book, and I'll just go through these slides quickly just to show you how delicious these foods are. All made from left of the red line foods: fruits, vegetables, whole grains, and legumes, free of sugar, oil, and salt. Oh, that's my favorite. Oh my God, that's actually Darshan. Remember, she made that for
Yes, that was so good.
But okay, let's say you don't want to cook. Let's say you want to go out to eat. Well, guess what? You can find this food at a restaurant. Here in Los Angeles, we have a restaurant called Sharky's, where I work with them, as I've worked with many restaurants, to create oil-free dishes. And this is called the AJ Bowl. This is a restaurant called Sioux Plantation. In other parts of the country is Sweet Tomatoes, where I could get a huge salad with peas and chickpeas and a huge baked potato with salsa and fruit. And this is just my first pass at the salad bar, by the way. And they have balsamic vinegar there as dressing, or you can bring your own. This was just at a mall that I was at recently. And yeah, brown rice is healthier. That's what I prefer. But I had to wait 4 hours when I got my holiday pictures taken, and I found this restaurant where they made these poke bowls. So I'm always able to find food. Now, this isn't the most delicious meal I've ever eaten, but I was volunteering at the hospital where I do every week at the cancer center, and my shift ran over, and I went to the hospital cafeteria, and I got some white rice and carrots. I'm always able to find food. You know, I can eat so much more now as a slender person than I ever ate as an overweight or obese person. If you go to episode 36 of my YouTube page, Chef AJ, Weight Loss Wednesday, you can see that I now eat not 3 to 5 pounds of food a day, but 8 to 10 pounds of food a day. So that's a picture of me at a typical meal when I was at True North. That's me on the cruise. That's about how much I eat. And that's me at the McDougall program. You really can eat more and weigh less if you learn to eat the right foods. All right, so now I mentioned to you that Americans eat less than 10% of their calories from fruits and vegetables, less than 10% to the left of the red line. So what are we eating that's making us so fat and sick? Well, the next food group is purple or yellow in the Mastering Diabetes program. So it's a healthful food, but it's just calorically dense. And what that is avocados. Now, if somebody wants to eat fat, I'd much rather have them eat an avocado than any processed or refined oil. But here's the thing about avocado. They are so creamy and so delicious that most of us can't stop at just a small amount. You know, if you go on the California Avocado Commission website, these are the people that grow the avocados, so they ostensibly want you to eat as many as possible. They say that a serving of avocado is a mere 1/5 of a medium avocado. Now, I don't know about you guys, but I've never been able to take a ripe, luscious avocado, cut it into 5 slices, eat one, and put 4 back in the fridge. If you can do it, well, maybe you don't need this lecture. But the truth is, especially if you're overweight or suffering from food addictions, these creamy, delicious, high-fat foods often perpetuate the desire for more of the same. And it's just hard for us to moderate the use of. And a single avocado can have as much as 300 calories or more and 30 grams of fat. So I'm not telling you never to eat it, but I'm telling you to be mindful that it's very high in fat and very high in caloric density. Now, the next food group, which is also in the red for the Mastering Diabetes program, which is 1,200 to 1,800 calories a pound, in my opinion, nobody ever needs to eat. These are highly processed foods not found in nature. And these are the refined complex carbohydrates and dairy products. Now, I'm not going to tell you right now why dairy is so deleterious to your health, because hopefully you either know or would be willing to watch a movie like Forks Over Knives or read a book like The China Study to find out why dairy is such a strong cancer promoter. But it's worse than other animal products because it's not only an animal product, but it's also a processed food, and it also is very highly addictive. You know, what's interesting is I work with a lot of people that are suffering from food addictions, and all the food addiction falls in this 1,200 to 1,800 calories. This is how I feel about that category of food. You see, at 1,200 calories a pound, we have ice cream. At 1,400 to 1,500 calories per pound, we have bread. At 1,600 calories per pound, we have cheese. And at 1,800 calories per pound, we have sugar. And most Americans eat over 150 pounds of sugar per person per year. That's like 900 calories per day of something that isn't even food, that has no fiber, that has no nutrients. Now, there's nothing wrong with eating beets. They're a whole natural food with fiber and water and vitamins and minerals and phytochemicals and antioxidants and micronutrients. They're about 195 calories per pound. But sugar is 1,800 calories per pound. You know, it takes about 3 feet of sugar cane to make a mere 1 teaspoon of sugar, and I don't know anybody that could chew through a 3-foot piece of sugar cane. You know, a lot of people, whether they eat sugar or not, understand it's not a health food, and it's been proven to be more addictive than cocaine or heroin. But try to take away flour or bread or pasta from people. Bread, it's the staff of life. We break bread with our loved ones. Now, even if bread were healthy, at 1,400 to 1,500 calories a pound, it's just too calorically dense for most people, especially overweight people, to eat on a regular basis and still be at an optimal weight. You know, when we take a whole grain and we cut it with a sharp blade to make a processed flour, we now have what's known as a broken grain. And when we ingest that broken grain, what happens is it increases the absorption in our intestines. And what that means is that our blood sugar is now raised more quickly, which raises our insulin more quickly. And again, insulin is that hormone that drives fat into the cell. Now, I mentioned earlier that our stomachs are about the size of a cantaloupe, and they hold about 1 liter of food. Now, I could easily eat 500 calories of brown rice. I do it all the time, as a matter of fact. It's about 2.5 cups. But if I take that same amount of brown rice and I mill it into brown rice flour to make a cake or a bread, I now need 1,500 calories to fill the same space in the tank, triple the caloric density. And so if you want to feel full on fewer calories, this is why calorie density is so important. So if you don't eat your food processed, you're going to be eating foods of a lower caloric density, with a few exceptions of the high-fat plant foods. Now, just to reiterate, these are the caloric densities of the foods that I mentioned. And by the way, alcohol also will fall into this group. And these are all the foods that people struggle with that are addictive. And if you want to know exactly why the cheese is addictive through a mechanism called casomorphins, I highly recommend Dr. Neil Barnard's book called The Cheese Trap, or his YouTube video called How to Magnetize a Baby, or his other there's another book called Breaking the Food Seduction, which talks about why these foods are so addictive. So I want you to think of this food group like, sorry, forgot my slide was there. Just to show you the dairy, this is cheese. This is 400 calories worth of cheese. This is like maybe 300 calories worth of potatoes. What's going to fill you up more? What is going to fill you up more? And if you're trying to lose weight, you always have to think about what's going to fill you up more on fewer calories. And again, the cheese has no fiber. It has no nutrients. It's more than 70% of the bad fat, saturated fat. As a matter of fact, that's where most Americans get most of their fat. And I remember when I interviewed the Mad Cowboy, Howard Lyman, on my show, he said it was harder for him to give up cheese than it was smoking. It's that addictive. And that's why it's probably one of the most important things you need to give up, and maybe even give up first if you're still eating these foods. Oh, so this is now 400 calories worth of sugar. In this case, it's maple syrup. And this is, like I said, maybe 300 calories worth of potatoes. I couldn't fit 400 in the jar. What's going to fill you up more? This is 400 calories worth of flour. So this is how I want you guys to think of this food group, because it really is poison. No human body, nobody needs anything in this food group. And most animal products are about 1,000 calories a pound. Some are about 1,600 for the higher fat ones like the pork and the fish. But nobody needs to be eating from this food group, in my opinion, ever. And especially not children, especially if you're overweight or have a lifestyle disease. So just get that image in your head, because these really aren't foods. These are poisons. And if you need an image, just put that on your refrigerator. That's my refrigerator magnet. Helps a lot of people, apparently, with compliance. All right.
That's great.
So at 2,500 calories a pound, we have now what is the most craved food in the world. It always tops the list, followed closely by pizza, which actually is the flour and the oil and the cheese, all the addictive foods in once. And ladies, you know what this is, because a lot of times once a month, you'll kill somebody to get some of it, and that's chocolate. Now, you could argue that there's some marginal health benefits in chocolate. It's higher in antioxidants than red wine or green tea. But it's the problem with chocolate is the company it keeps, which is usually full-fat dairy or lots of sugar. A lot of times you look at this and you go, wow, you just really want it. And it's interesting because I've been vegan for almost 41 years now. And what I've heard a lot of people say to me is, Chef AJ, if I ate like you, I'm not sure I'd live longer. I think it would just feel like it. Because a lot of people think that my eating is deprivation, when it's actually quite the opposite. And everybody tells me, well, chocolate tastes better than kale. Now, when I give this lecture in person, and I've done this many times now for the past 6 years, I say to the audience, I say, who would bet me right now $100 that the reason you like chocolate better than kale is because it tastes better? I've never had anybody take that bet, and I wish they would, because I could sure use $100. I understand that you like chocolate better than kale, most of you probably, and that you think it tastes better. But remember what I said earlier about how taste is subjective? Well, what if I told you that there's a reason that you like chocolate better than kale? A reason that you like all the foods to the right of the red line better than the foods to the left of the red line? Well, they did a study on people that were self-professed chocoholics. Now, this had nothing to do with weight, but these were people that were chocoholics. And they brought them into the research lab. They had filled out a questionnaire to find out what their favorite chocolate was so that they could have every kind of candies, cakes, cookies, pies, and ice cream there for the experiment. Well, before they unleashed them on the buffet, they gave them an injection of a drug called naloxone. Now, if you're a heroin addict, you know what that is, because naloxone is a drug that's normally administered in the emergency room if somebody were to take what could be a fatal heroin overdose, because it blocks the blood-brain barrier so that the person won't die from this potential fatal dose of heroin. Well, they gave the chocoholics the injection of naloxone, and they unleashed them on the buffet, and they went to whatever their favorite piece of candy or confection was, and they literally took one bite, and they walked away. Now, did the chocolate cease to be creamy and delicious and good tasting? Or was something happening in their brain to block the pleasure that they were getting from it? Oops, Robbie, can I go back one slide? I'm sorry. Thanks. Okay. So here's the thing. What I need you guys to understand is that we don't always eat for reasons of hunger and survival anymore. I would argue that most people don't eat for those reasons hardly ever. Whenever we have a pleasurable experience, and for all species, the two most pleasurable experiences are eating and sex, we get rewarded with a hit of a neurotransmitter that's produced in the brain called dopamine. Well, all eating stimulates the production of dopamine in the brain, even lowly kale at 100 calories per pound. But the more calorically concentrated the calories, the more dopamine is released. So you get a lot more dopamine from chocolate at 2,500 calories a pound than you do from kale at 100 calories a pound. Now, most people aren't engaging in healthful activities on a daily basis that could get them these feel-good brain chemicals, such as exercise, having sex, maybe doing volunteer work. And so they're looking for these high-calorie, high-fat foods so that they can feel good. They're using foods not just to celebrate, but also to medicate. A lot of people are addicts. They have addiction in their family. They're born with something called low D2 receptivity, where that means they produce even less dopamine. And if they've been using a lot of these foods as, to medicate, they produce even less dopamine. So it's completely normal to prefer foods of a higher caloric density for survival and because you want more dopamine. But this experiment shows that it's not really because of the taste, it's because of what it's doing for you. And if you find a person like, for instance, Gar Goldhammer, Dr. Goldhammer's son, who was raised without any of these foods, I promise you he gets just as much enjoyment from his Brussels sprouts that he eats as breakfast as a lot of us get from these high-fat, high-calorie foods. And you can too, but it does take some time. You just have to understand that these taste preferences are learned, with the exception of breast milk, and that you can learn to love things like fruits and vegetables and all the foods to the left of the red line and get as much pleasure, probably even more pleasure than you're getting now, because you'll be in a body that is leaner and free of disease. So again, with the jars, and I have these all behind me, this isn't 400 calories of M&Ms with peanuts. This is actually 500 calories. And this is 300 calories of potatoes. What's going to fill you up more? Now at 2,800 calories a pound, again, this is a purple food for Chef AJ and a yellow food for Mastering Diabetes. It's a healthy food, but we have to exercise caution because of its high fat and high caloric density. We have the nuts, the seeds, the nut butters, and tahinis. Nuts are about 2,600 calories a pound. Seeds are about 2,600 calories a pound, and certain nuts like macadamia nuts can be as high as 3,200 calories a pound. So I did an average. Again, not unhealthy, but just very, very calorically dense. I mean, I can't moderate the use of these, especially cashews and pistachios. And if you can, fantastic. But a lot of people can't. Now, if you look at the jars, this is 400 calories of walnuts, 40 grams of fat, and less than 300 of potatoes with virtually no fat. What is going to fill you up more? What's even worse than nuts is the nut butters, because you process them, and now you have even less volume. This is 400 calories of peanut butter. Man, that wouldn't even swipe one piece of toast. Not for me, it wouldn't. I think peanut butter's crack and should be outlawed personally. Now, just to give you a real-life example from my food, the photo on the left is a piece of pecan pie that I make every year when I teach at True North for their holiday cooking extravaganza. It's a pecan pie that's made from just dates and pecans, two healthy, whole, natural foods. Now, that piece of pie for me is about 6 bites. For most people, it would be about 8 bites. And it's almost 700 calories and over 40 grams of fat. But on the right is something that I eat for lunch almost every day, a 2-pound sweet potato and 4 artichokes, like about 600 calories. What is going to fill you up more? The photo on the left was taken of me in 2011 when I was eating exactly 1 ounce of nuts a day. I was weighing and measuring my nuts thinking that I was going to die because some of the doctors will tell you that you have to have these every day. No, you don't, believe it or not. You really don't. If you're worried, I don't know where the program stands on a tablespoon or a teaspoon of flax or chia seeds, but that's what I would recommend over the nuts. But that was me with 1 ounce of nuts a day at 165 pounds. I could not lose any weight. Well, guess what happened the next year when I started eating a food that's been vilified by many people, the potato, because they're so fattening. Well, they're only fattening when you French fry them in the oil and make a 400 calorie a pound food, 2,500 calories a pound, or put bacon or cheese or butter on your baked potatoes or sour cream. But wouldn't it make sense that if I swapped out a food that was 3,000 calories a pound for a food that was 400, I would lose weight? And even more than losing weight, potatoes are so much more satiating, and a lot of people think if I don't eat fat, I'm going to be hungry. No, that's not true. Of all the macronutrients, protein, fat, and carbohydrate, fat has the weakest satiety. According to the satiety index developed by Dr. Susanna Holt, the food with the most satiety is the potato. And people have lived on potatoes for years and more throughout human history. You can Google the KON potato study. Chris Voigt, the head of the Washington Potato Commission, ate nothing but potatoes for 60 days to reverse his diabetes and heart disease. And he was even eating with like animal products and cheese and oil. And Andrew Spudford Taylor went a year with nothing but potatoes, lost 120 pounds and reversed his depression and food addiction. If this is what you look like, I would say don't eat nuts. This is how you can tell if you're eating too many. Otherwise, if you can do 1 ounce a day, healthfully, some people can, but I have found that most overweight people and food addicts, we cannot. Okay, 4,000 calories a pound, the food highest in caloric density, and I use the term food loosely, is oil, all oil. Yes, even so-called heart-healthy first press extra virgin olive oil, coconut oil, which is even worse because it's 92% saturated fat, which is higher in saturated fat than lard. And that is one thing that every plant-based doctor that I know of agrees on, even though we may have some minor differences when it comes to sugar, flour, and salt. I don't know any of the plant-based doctors that are recommending any oil. If you want to understand more about this, again, please watch Forks Over Knives, read Dr. Esselson's book, Prevent or Reverse Heart Disease. But oil is not a food. It's for cars. It's not for humans. You know, it takes about 16 ears of corn to make 1 tablespoon of corn oil, and I don't think any of you could eat 16 ears of corn. I couldn't even get to 3, let me tell you that. It takes over 40 olives to make a tablespoon of olive oil. And you know, olives, except for the fact that they're usually cured in salt, I mean, they're a whole natural food with fiber and water and vitamins and minerals and phytochemicals and antioxidants. They're about 400 calories a pound. But you process them into olive oil in a process that is often very toxic and includes a chemical called lye. And everything that was good about the whole natural food, the olive, is thrown away in the processing, and you're left with the non-nutritive portion, the disease-promoting portion, the sludge, which injures your endothelial cells, which is the life jacket of your circulatory system. It's atherogenic, diabetogenic, and obesogenic, which means all oils promote obesity, heart disease, and diabetes. So this is one food that you want to avoid, not just for optimal health, even if you are at your ideal weight, but especially for weight loss. And I'll tell you a little story about that. So I did a little experiment on an unwitting subject, my husband Charles. On August 1st, 2008, after hearing a lecture of Dr. Esselstyn, I went SOS-free, sugar-free, oil-free, and salt-free. And I didn't tell my husband because I figured he didn't need to know. I did all the cooking. I made his breakfast, sent him to work with a lunch, and made his dinner. So I just stopped using oil. And by the way, of sugar, fat, and salt, which is what I call the evil trinity, oil is the easiest thing to get rid of because first of all, it blocks the taste buds on your tongue. And if you use it, you have to use a lot of salt for it to taste the food. But it's really easy to cook and bake and saute without oil. So he didn't notice any change of the food. If anything, it tasted better. Well, 7 months after stopping oil, he had to go to a formal event. He doesn't usually wear a belt, but he went to put his belt on, and all of a sudden he couldn't buckle it because there were no holes. And he said, oh my God, I must have cancer. I've lost so much weight. Well, 7 months after stopping oil, which he didn't even know he was doing, he lost 8 pounds. Now, if somebody, he was 6 feet and 140 pounds. He was already lean. Excuse me, 160 pounds. He's 142 now. But if somebody that doesn't even need to lose weight, that doesn't want to lose weight, that has been experimented on against their will, loses that much weight stopping oil, without knowing it, imagine what you could do and accomplish by doing it on purpose. You know, they've done studies at restaurants where they have given people identical meals with and without oil. So for example, I could make a dish at home, a pasta primavera, using a gluten-free pasta and a marinara sauce like in my book that has no oil and some steamed vegetables. And I can give you a huge plate of food for about 500 calories. But in a restaurant, and I worked at a restaurant for many years, the way they make it is they put oil in the water, oil and salt to make the pasta. They put oil in the vegetables or butter, and they put about a cup of oil in the marinara sauce. So for the same amount of food I can make at home for 500 calories, in a restaurant would be 1,000 calories. But the thing is you don't feel any fuller from the oil. Oil bypasses the normal mechanisms of satiation, and it does not register. It slips under the radar, undetected by your mechanisms of satiation. And so it's insidious. And that's why if you insist on eating at restaurants without being very careful, you can really pack on the pounds or not lose weight because of all the oil. And this slide helps explain it better. These are 3 identical stomachs, and you can see that 400 calories of oil doesn't even register. We have what's known as our mechanisms of satiation so that we can feel full, stretch nutrient and calorie receptors. Well, oil has no nutrients, so it can't register the nutrient receptors. It has no fiber, so it can never activate the stretch receptors unless you have an unthinkable amount of it. And the same thing with the animal products, whether it's chicken here or the cheese I showed you earlier. Sure, it's a little bit more filling than the oil, but again, it has no fiber and no nutrients. And so the only way to feel full is to overeat. But if you eat 400 calories of whole, low-fat plant food, like they recommend in the Mastering Diabetes program, or that I say is left of the red line, you could fill your stomach 4, 5, maybe 6 times a day, depending on your size and activity needs, and feel extremely full at every single meal. And that's really what calorie density is about. You can eat twice as much food and yet take in half as many calories when you not only understand, but implement calorie density. Now, Dr. McDougall, who some of you may know, he's one of my heroes, has been saying for over 40 years, the fat you eat is the fat you wear. So if you don't want to eat fat, if you don't want to wear fat, then stop eating fat. Now, you might remember from a high school biology class that all protein is 4 calories per gram, all carbohydrates is 4 calories per gram. Alcohol is almost twice as calorically dense at 7 calories per gram, and fat is more than twice as calorically dense at 9 calories per gram. Now, as I mentioned earlier, liquid calories are never favorable for weight loss, but alcohol is probably even worse. Because what happens is when you consume alcohol, it becomes the body's preferred source of fuel. So every other bodily process is arrested while you detoxify from the alcohol. Have you ever noticed that they call being drunk intoxicated? Well, that's because alcohol is literally toxic to every cell of your body. And the World Health Organization has now come out with a statement saying they can no longer recommend any amount of alcohol as safe because it's linked to every single cancer. But for lifestyle disease prevention, reversal, and weight loss, it's absolutely deplorable. One of the reasons is because generally when people consume alcohol, they don't make the best food choices. They rarely go to the bar and say, hey, bartender, give me a beer and I'll have the steamed kale. So the thing is it's never going to be favorable for weight loss and certainly never going to be favorable for improving or arresting your diabetes. And I'm pretty sure everybody can agree on that. So now the thing is the fat you eat is the fat you wear. And that's because that saying, a moment on the lips, forever on the hips, is so true because it takes only 3% of the calories in the dietary fat to be stored as body fat. But it would take about 30 or more % of the calories in the protein and carbohydrates to be stored as body fat if you even could do it. But the thing is you probably can't. That's something called de novo lipogenesis, which pigs can do, but human beings cannot readily convert extra protein and carbohydrate to fat, because what happens is that if you eat an extra baked potato because maybe you were an emotional eater or a food addict and like you didn't blow it, because the truth is these extra carbohydrate calories, well, they get burned as heat, escaping through the top of the head as heat, through the fidget factor, or stored invisibly in the muscles or the liver as glycogen. And that's why this is so perfect for people that actually like to eat, because you don't have to limit the amount of food you eat. You only have to change what you eat. Now, these next series of slides I'll go through quickly. These are not calorie comparisons. These are fat comparisons. For the same amount of fat in one potato chip, you can have 40 baby carrots. For the same amount of fat in one cracker with a traditional sour cream and onion dip, you can have an entire platter of crudité with a fat-free hummus. For the same amount of calories in a tablespoon of ranch dressing, you can have 10 pounds of cherry tomatoes. And if you roast these, they actually do taste like candy. For the same amount of fat in one chocolate chip, you can have 5 pounds of grapes. Freeze them. They taste like sorbet. The sandwich on the lower right-hand corner is from a restaurant characterized by golden arches. And as my good friend Dr. Hans Deal says, that the more you will eat at the golden arches, the sooner you'll reach the pearly gates. And as I like to say, if you want $1 million figure, you got to stop eating off the dollar menu. That sandwich has over 25 grams of fat. That 10-pound bowl of fruit salad, which would be a snack for Robbie, has trace amounts of fat. And what's going to fill you up more? For the same amount of fat in just a mere fun-size bag of M&Ms, you can have, I can't see my thing, but it's either 13 or 14 apples. And we've already talked about how we don't even think most of us could eat 6 apples in one sitting. You could have the world's smallest piece of pizza and have maybe 2 bites, or you could have a huge bowl of vegan chili. 2 tablespoons of guacamole have 8 grams of fat. You could have a huge bowl of salsa with almost no fat. You know, when I was working at True North, I was there for 5 weeks, and we don't get a lot of these high-fat, delicious foods, but once a month they bring out a tub of guacamole to top our potatoes. And when we saw the guacamole, after not seeing it for about 30 days, we all filled half our 11-inch dinner plates with guacamole. And Dr. Goldhammer said to us at the next meeting, he said, "Does anybody know what a serving of guacamole is?" And nobody raised their hand. He said, "Well, I wanted you all to know it's 2 tablespoons. Well, when I got home, I went to Trader Joe's and I looked at a commercial bag of guacamole. Sure enough, it was 2 tablespoons. But I remember that day when Dr. Goldhammer said that, I raised my hand when he said 2 tablespoons. And I go, "You mean per chip?" And he says, "No, per day." Well, if you can eat 2 tablespoons of guacamole, then you're probably that person that can eat the ounce of nuts, and God bless you. But most of the people I've met, especially those that are overweight or suffer from food addictions, we have trouble moderating the use of these delicious, high-fat, high-calorie foods. Because even though they may not be addictive in the sense that sugar and flour are addictive and alcohol, they often for us become trigger foods, foods that we can't moderate the use of, that merely perpetuate eating and overeating. You could have the world's smallest hot fudge sundae, or get a Yonana's machine or a Champion juicer and have a huge bowl of fruit sorbet. You could have a huge salad, or you could have a little feta cheese on it, and then now you've got 7 grams of fat. You could have 1 donut, or for the same amount of fat, 71 oranges. Homer Simpson would still probably pick the donut. You could have 1 peanut M&M or 9 jumbo strawberry. And hey, if you really need that chocolate hit, you can get a good quality reduced balsamic vinegar from Be Mon Paz and drizzle it over your strawberries. You could have 1 truffle or 26 oranges. And boy, Cara Cara are in season right now, and they're delicious, let me tell you. You could have 1 peanut or 3 cups of Air Pop popcorn. But I don't recommend Air Pop popcorn for weight loss. I'm just showing you in terms of caloric density, it's better. You see, Air Pop popcorn is 1,800 calories per pound, more than triple the caloric density of corn at 500 calories a pound. So it's certainly better than other things you could eat. But if you're trying to lose weight, remember, the water's been removed. And anytime you remove the water or you remove the fire, you're probably going to overeat on it. My favorite, you could have 2 huge baked potatoes, which I often do, or you could have 2 French fries. Or you could get an air fryer and have a ton of French fries from those 2 baked potatoes. So just to review, the foods to the left of the red line, which in Mastering Diabetes are your green light foods, these are whole foods. They're found in nature, which means they contain vitamins, minerals, phytochemicals, antioxidants, but more importantly, they contain fiber and water, and that creates bulk, which creates satiety. The foods to the right of the red line in red, which are also the red foods in the Mastering Diabetes program, these are processed foods. They are not found in nature. They contain few to no micronutrients and very little to no fiber or water, and they contribute very little to satiety. The foods in purple, which are the yellow foods in the Mastering Diabetes program, these are healthful foods, but they are very calorically dense and, in my opinion, best included in small amounts after weight loss is achieved and after disease reversal is also achieved. Now, just to show you does this way of eating work, these are photos of me before and after. These are just people from my Ultimate Weight Loss program. that sent me their picture. You know, they say, Robbie, that inside every fat person is a thin person trying to get out, but who knew that Dr. Greger was also trying to get out, you know? So these are real people, all from my Ultimate Weight Loss program, that have sent me their photos eating to the left of the red line. And you can see that it's absolutely extraordinary. And the great thing about it, guys, is it never doesn't work. Never has it not worked. Look at how, and they get just buff afterwards. It's just unbelievable the amount of weight you can lose eating this way. Couples are doing it together. So let me get to this one picture that I really want to show you of this next gal. She's coming up. She is diabetic, by the way. Let me go back because, you know, I'm going to recommend her to your program. She was recommended to me by our Tupperware lady, literally. They said, go to Chef AJ and look at already. I mean, she's still, you know, on insulin. She's just doing remarkably well. Unbelievable. Unbelievable. So this is Shada. And Shada was my very first client, has lost over 120 pounds on the Ultimate Weight Loss program. And if you look at the photo on the left, she's holding some alcohol. I call this photo from martini to bikini, just to show why it's so important not to drink alcohol if you want to lose weight. And these are some more before and afters. That's Jean-Pierre, a good friend to all the plant-based people. This lady now is up over not up, but she's down 300 pounds on the Ultimate Weight Loss program. And she is just, when people say it's too hard, well, she has cancer. She was homeless, living in a car, raising 2 children, and she still did it. And now she's down over 300 pounds. If you want to follow her, her name's Heather Goodwin, and she's extraordinary. So that's my new book, and I hope you'll sign up to be on my mailing list and find out when it's coming out, which is any day now. That's my old book, still pretty good if you ask me. My TV show, 13 episodes, where you can learn how to make these delicious green light or left of the red line foods deliciously. Please consider signing up for my website. And just to review again, that's what we talked about today. And for disease prevention, disease reversal, like your diabetes, and for ultimate weight loss, the secret is to eat to the left of the red line. Thank you very much.
Okay, Chef AJ, this is incredible. Okay, it's very clear, very clear. And now we are going to get into the portion of showing how do you reverse type 2 diabetes while doing all this amazing weight loss, okay? All at the same time. That's the whole point here. We're going to show why, like you said in the beginning, it works for all these amazing
and even like Nina and Randa, they didn't need to lose weight. They had unretractable acne. It's like, that's what's so great is we're all on the same diet.
And it's so simple. Yep. It's so simple, but yet the hardest thing at the same time. That's the funny part.
Simple, just
that's
not always easy, yeah.
Okay, so we have a program that teaches people how to do this. So Chef AJ referred to it many times, how our program is on the exact same alignment in regards to foods, how to eat, how to do it. And these are the colorful foods. So Chef AJ showed you all the amazing meals that she has, and these are more examples of very colorful things. Now we're going to get into some of the things you might see blended here and why that is not ideal, but still can be part of your transition. So, like Chef AJ said, this is very easy. To the left of the red line is our green light category. So when we teach people how to reverse insulin resistance, which is the cause of prediabetes and type 2 diabetes, you do that by eating all these foods, fruits, all the fruits you want, non-starchy vegetables. Starchy vegetables are the potatoes, okay? Beans, lentils, and peas. Green leafy vegetables, intact whole grains, meaning the key word there, intact, and herbs and spices. You genuinely get to eat these in unlimited quantities. And like Chef AJ said, it never does not work.
Not yet.
I haven't seen it. Okay, so then here we have the yellow light category. So these are foods that, again, we're not like the food police here at Master Diabetes. We're not trying to be the militant, like you can't do this, you can't do this. You can still have small amounts of these things. It's just a matter of knowing yourself and eating the appropriate amount. So some people, maybe you want to just cut it all out. That's okay too. Some people, you want to transition. You want to take it one step at a time. That's what we encourage. That's how you get long-term success. And these are foods that you could eat in small quantities. So nuts, seeds, avocados, coconuts, all those are all whole foods. We want to limit the amount you're eating. Pastas, and then so you could have brown rice pasta.
Or bean pasta.
Still, yes. Still a very clean, healthy, good food. Could be a great transition item as you're stepping into this, but it's not ideal. We'd rather still you have just beans or just brown rice. Same thing with bread. So whatever the bread was originally made out of, that's the intact whole grain. That's what we prefer you eat. Breads we put in the yellow category. Okay, and then the red light category.
It's a bad category.
These are the foods we want you to avoid, okay? Dairy products, eggs, red and white meat, fish and shellfish, and Chef AJ went very clear why oils are a problem. Everybody knows refined sugars, pastries, and breads, but now we know have a more in-depth understanding of the calorie density side
Really
of
high.
those foods.
So high.
Right? So here's more beautiful pictures of this is what you get to eat in literally as much as you want.
Yum.
Your body will tell you when you've had enough. So here we are very fruit friendly here at Master Diabetes. You heard Chef AJ reference that several times. You genuinely get to eat all the mangoes, the papaya, grapes. You get to eat these foods in unlimited quantities. We teach you how, when it comes to the glycemic index, we teach you how to combine foods. People are concerned about eating grapes. Well, if you eat grapes with a salad, with apples,
I always put grapes in my salad.
You can enjoy them as much as you want. It's not going to cause blood glucose issues.
Is like the best combination.
There you go. So how do we do this? How do we do it in the Master Diabetes program? We give you 3 powerful tools, okay? A step-by-step online course so you know how to do it one step at a time, a private Facebook community, and then live Q&A calls. Similar to this, but we can see each other, okay? So we're going to go in detail on each one of those. Okay, the step-by-step online course. This is where we lay out exactly what to do in a specific order. So we don't expect people to go overnight and change everything. That's unrealistic. We know that doesn't work. We want you to have long-term success. And the way that works for us, in most cases, is changing it one meal at a time. And that's how the course laid out. So you get recipes, you get guidance every step of the way. You get videos understanding the science and some of the reasoning behind what you're doing, making sure you're getting all your nutrients, all the proteins. All that information is in the course in the proper order that you need to learn it. So we have examples of our modules here. You have a welcome module. This is where we're going to get started. Slow and steady wins the race. We're going to set the tone for how this is going to work. You're going to change breakfast first. You're going to understand insulin resistance, okay? Very important. Then we get into module 2. This is where we're going to understand a little bit more about calorie density, what we talked about tonight, why salt, oil, and sugar are a problem. We go into depth with all that. And then we start changing lunch. And then once you're ready, it's one step at a time. So once you've mastered breakfast, once you've mastered lunch, and it takes somebody a couple weeks, maybe a month, it's okay. Then you move into the next step. We're going to master dinner, all right? And then once you've done that, then we're going to figure out how can we incorporate intermittent fasting into your program, all right? And then we get into exercise and optimizing that. But again, we focus on food first. That's where you're going to have the biggest impact. Keep it very simple. Then we get into details of how to shop at wholesale markets, how to shop at Costco, how can you get everything you need at Walmart, how do you make this affordable, how do you deal with social situations, in whether you're going to traveling, all this stuff we cover in detail in the online course. Now, the private Facebook community. This is one of the most amazing parts about our program. We have our team in this group all year, literally every day of the year. We are in there answering any question that comes in within 24 hours. So we are there with you every step of the way. So whatever questions you have as you're making a transition, we are there. So what are examples of things posted? So pictures of your food. We love to see what you're eating. It's one thing for you to write and tell us. It's another thing for us to see the volume, see what you're combining. That's a really important aspect. And other people are doing the same thing. So you get inspired, get recipe ideas. People sharing their blood glucose measurements. What's going on? How are things improving? We want to know. We're very objective and scientific at Mastering Diabetes. Decision tree. That's a really important lesson in our online course about how we can see the entire picture of what's going on and how to guide you in reducing medications, which is obviously a major goal for most people. How do you deal with your doctor? Maybe your doctor's not supportive. We can help you communicate. How do you find a new doctor? How do you go through the process of reducing your medications? We can give you guidance. We can give you tips, and so can the people in our community. Same thing with traveling. You know, we can find restaurants together. We can talk about what to do. We can plan. It's a real community effort. And of course, troubleshooting difficult times. We know this is not about rainbows and unicorns. Everything's perfect. Like, we know that lifestyle change is challenging and things come up, and we are there to support you every step of the way. So here's our examples of people posting in the group. There's a beautiful meal on the left. We have people using nutrition software to objectively know they're getting everything they need and calculate their fat. It's very important. We see here a great blood glucose reading and an amazingly beautiful bowl of food right there. People seeing their best fasting readings, A1C coming down, all eating these foods that Chef AJ showed how you can lose weight, also reverses insulin resistance and type 2 diabetes. More pictures of a decision tree. We have Tammy showing how she went and climbed this pyramid when she wasn't able to do that previously. And again, like I said, our community is a safe place to ask for support. It's a really positive, community, very compassionate. We want to hear everything that's going on and be there with you every step of the way. Here's examples of people losing weight. So Patricia, she lost 42 pounds. She's living with type 1.5 diabetes, and her A1C went from 7.1 to 5.6%. And look at that. Her total carbohydrate intake went from 30 to 500 grams per day. That is a major jump. Her A1C went down, her weight went down, fasting blood glucose improved, and her insulin use went down. It's incredible. Okay, Tammy. Tammy is an amazing story. She lost 37 pounds in 4.5 months, and she completely reversed type 2 diabetes. A1C is now 5.3%. That is completely out of the diabetes range. And look at her cholesterol, all this stuff improved, again, because she understood calorie density and got to eat as much as she wanted of the whole plant foods. Joaquin lost 35 pounds. Fasting blood glucose went down. He completely reversed type 2 diabetes. We actually just saw him recently in San Diego, and he is doing amazing. The new video with him coming out soon. And here is another example. It doesn't matter if you're living with type 1, type 1.5, type 2. You get to eat this way, and you start to reach your ideal weight. So he lost 49 pounds. His A1C, significant improvement. That's excellent A1C for someone living with type 1 diabetes. And look at his insulin usage going down. And he also eliminated 12 oral medications. So like Chef AJ was saying earlier, this works for a wide range of ailments. Don lost 50 pounds in 7 months. A1C went from 8.4 to 6.1%. So he's in the pre-diabetes range. He's going to continue, and he's going to get into the completely non-diabetic range very soon. Look at his cholesterol. He has an amazing story. And Don reversed heart disease. He was told he's going to need a bypass. He just chose not to do that, changed his lifestyle, and look at where he is now. It's incredible. So the third part of our program, we have these twice monthly Q&A calls. So it's a live call. Me and Cyrus and our other coaches are there, and we answer your questions in person. So you can see us, we can see you, and we go into detail on whatever questions come up. And again, any small question you have, you can ask on the Facebook group. We answer you within 24 hours. If you want to go back and forth, maybe talk a little bit more in depth, that's what is good for these Q&A calls. What are things we cover? So again, talking with your doctor, we're going to go through that. We can do role plays. We can give you examples. You can learn from other people. Dealing with food cravings, we can absolutely help with that. Reducing medication, we talk about that, and you can learn from others. What are the best foods to eat before, during, and after exercise? It's a very important topic. Go into the details there. And again, challenges with social situations, very important, and we love to help with that. So again, it's a video call. You can see us. It's really personal, and we just love it. We enjoy it. So our program, what does it cost to join this program? All right. So the online course itself, we have put in years and years of work to make that course as thorough as possible, and that's valued at $1,200. The Facebook group, again, we are answering questions every single day within 24 hours by me, Cyrus, we're a registered nurse in there. We have people who reverse type 2 diabetes. It's amazing. So we're valued at $1,000. Content we're adding consistently, new recipes, new videos, new tips, $1,500. Q&A calls, you got me and Cyrus answering questions every other Sunday, so it's twice monthly, valued at $1,200. You add that up, it's $4,900, but trust me, we are not going to charge you guys that much. You're actually going to be amazed at how affordable it is. And today we have bonuses. So we have an incredibly affordable program, plus these bonuses. It's an amazing offer we have. So the Mastering Diabetes Online Summit. We interviewed the best of the best. Dr. AJ referred to many of these experts today: Neil Barnard, Caldwell Esselstyn, Dean Ornish, Michael Greger. These interviews cover the wide range of aspects of why this diet works, how it works, the science behind it, and then the how-to. How do you implement it in a lot of various nuanced situations? We go into depth with these experts. Okay, so that's bonus number one, valued at $97. And then we have small group coaching. So small group coaching is when you get on a small call with roughly 10 people or so, me or Cyrus or one of our coaches on this call, and we go in depth with each other personally. So again, it's very small. We really get to know each person, and it's a next level of accountability. So we're sort of overseeing everything you're doing every step of the way. So every week, we're going to talk to you. We're going to check in. What's going on? What are you struggling with? How can we help? We're going to give you a homework assignment, and we're going to see you next week. and we're going to check in, and we're going to ask you what'd you do, how's it going. That level of accountability, that group support where you really get to know each other personally is very, very valuable. And we are offering that bonus tonight. So you get 2 free weeks of that, okay? So you get everything plus the small group video conferences. Those happen once per week. That's valued at $125. So this whole thing is $5,122. And the price we're actually charging is incredibly affordable. So for an entire year, you get the entire program for an entire year, costs you $249. When I go see my endocrinologist for a 15-minute appointment, it costs over $400 for one appointment. The endocrinologist does not help me, does not work with me every day on a daily basis and guide me through that. So we will load up in the offer box a chance to click and redeem this. So hopefully Tara will be able to do that. And again, you get all this, you get the Master Diabetes program, you get the small group coaching, 2 free weeks of that, and then you get the Mastering Diabetes Online Summit, which has over 30 plus hours of interviews with the leading experts, okay? So we get all that for one price of $249. That's 30% off the regular price, which is a $29 monthly fee. So we really, really hope you join us. We would love to work with you to implement all the information that Chef AJ showed us today. Because again, it truly is. To tell you what to do is very simple. Just eat to the left of the red line. That's it. But it's the easiest thing. But the actual implementation is very difficult. There's a lot of nuances. There's a lot of details. And that's why we have created this program to help people through that process and help them reverse type 2 diabetes. If you're living with type 1, type 1.5, we want you to have your best health, reach your ideal weight, have amazing A1C readings, and that is all done by the overarching principle of reversing insulin resistance. That's what we do at Mastering Diabetes. And when you're losing all this weight, that's a huge component of reversing insulin resistance. Is there anything you'd like to add, Cyrus, if we can hear you?
Yeah, absolutely. First of all, AJ, I wanted to thank you so much for your presentation. I was literally glued to the screen the entire time.
Oh, thank you.
Absolutely. I think one of the things that's just so remarkable about the way that you present is that when you show images of the difference between 6 apples and 4 ounces of apple juice, as an example, or 4 potatoes and a couple tablespoons of olive oil at the bottom of a jar, it really drives home the point that all foods are not created equal as far as calorie density is concerned. And if your goal is to actually eat a decent amount of food and stay full, then there's a simple way to do it. And it's all about what you choose to put into your mouth. So I totally appreciate those visuals, because it's just like, I've been doing this for 15 years myself, and this is the first time I've actually seen the visuals that way. I think it's fantastic. Amazing.
Thank you.
Super enlightening. Very, very enlightening. So, should we answer some questions, Cyrus?
Absolutely. Let's do some questions for sure. No question.
All right. So I think I will go ahead and turn our camera on here. So we will stop sharing. There we go. Turn our camera on.
All right, I'll do the same thing. Hopefully you guys can see me. If you guys can see me, just could you write yes in the chat box, just so I know that my video is coming through? Okay, in the meantime, we'll get to some questions here.
Yeah, I can see you. You look clear, coming in great.
All right, cool. We've got a bunch of yeses here. Awesome. Okay. So Dale asked a question. He says, at some point, can you address the point that healthcare folks say that older people with diabetes need to keep an A1C higher? I got my A1C down to 5.9 using insulin. They say the older you get, the higher the healthcare wants you to keep it closer to 7. What's that all about? Okay. So Dale, I think this is actually a really good point. And don't quote me on this, but I think the reason that the medical professionals want you to keep your A1C a little bit higher as you get older is simply because hypoglycemia becomes a little bit more dangerous as you get older. Now, doctors operate under the assumption that if your A1C is in the 5s, you're living with diabetes, but your A1C is a 5.7, or maybe, it's down to a 5.3, like people like Tammy or Chris Hertel, right? they make the assumption that if your A1C is that low, then you're going hypoglycemic frequently, which is not a true statement always. It can be a true statement, but it's not always a true statement. So what they're trying to tell you is, hey, listen, I'd much prefer that you don't go hypoglycemic often and get your A1C to be a little bit higher, because that's safer for you than running into a potentially traumatic situation where you go dangerously hypoglycemic and maybe pass out, could potentially hit your head and then get unconscious. So as far as the metabolic effects are concerned, operating at a lower A1C closer to the 6s is going to be much safer in the long term for sure. So again, if you're able to maintain an A1C in the 6s or in the low or in the mid 5s, and you're doing it without going hypoglycemic frequently, then that would be the best place to be.
Absolutely.
Okay, so Chef AJ, we got a question here for you.
Oh, sure.
This comes from Claire, and she says, how much fat is required from avocados, nuts, and seeds to support optimal absorption of fat-soluble vitamins? You got any insight there?
So I don't know the number, but I will tell you this. I've spoken all over the world. I speak at a lot of hospitals and medical schools, and I know that a lot of the plant-based doctors say that if we don't put fat into our greens, that we won't absorb the nutrients. But I've never met a single person that was fat or sick or diabetic because of poor micronutrient absorption. And every doctor I've ever met, I've asked if they've ever actually experienced that. So the truth is I don't know that exact number, but there is fat in everything. So for example, oats have almost 20% of their calories from fat. Greens have 3% of their calories from fat, and fruit has even something like 1% of its calories from fat. And if you have fat on your body, I promise you, you will not become fatty acid deficient. So what most people say, like Dr. Esselstyn for his heart patients, is if you're worried, have about a tablespoon of ground flax or ground chia seeds every day, either sprinkled on your salad or in your oatmeal. Now, because I'm a food addict in recovery, I can't eat any added fat because it's like the baby bird. Like the minute you give me one Brazil nut, then next thing I'm eating a pound of pistachios. I have not added any fat to my diet since January 2nd, 2012. And I do this very safely under medical supervision. Before I started, I had my levels checked in my blood of my omega-3 fatty acids, my DHA, my EPA, my ALA, my ratio. And I actually was low in 2012. And now 6 years later, it's high because I eat so many vegetables. I eat greens. I eat things like purslane. So as far as how much you need, I would say no more than a tablespoon of flax or chia a day. But I'm not even sure you need that.
There you go.
Okay, fantastic. So here's another really good question here. Chris asked a question, says, I've had a lot of success losing weight on a whole food plant-based diet, but I've actually been losing too much weight. So what high calorie density foods do you recommend to keep my daily calorie intake a little bit higher so that I stop losing weight?
Yeah. Well, one of the things is you can also eat more starch. I mean, you could just eat more food. You're really lucky. So you could just have like way more. So some of those foods that we put on the yellow for them and the purple for me, you could have air pop popcorn. You could have guacamole. You know, you're really lucky. You could have peanut butter, or almond butter is probably better, or tahini. The other thing is I can't see you, but we live in a culture right now where 3/4 of the people are overweight or obese. Actually, 40%, I believe, are obese. And we now see overweight people as normal, and morbidly obese people as just obese, and obese people as just overweight. So the fact is you may actually look great and be trim the way people are supposed to look, but because everybody else around us is so fat and sick that we stick out. And so what I'm saying is maybe you are actually fine and just maybe need to go to the gym and pump some iron, but you're also very lucky because you can have the high fat, what I call pleasure trap foods, the nuts, the seeds, the avocado, the tahini, and or just eat more sweet potatoes. That's what I would do.
Easy as that. Just eat more of the whole food, calorie dense foods.
Yep.
Okay.
It's a huge thing when it comes to fruit as well. Like people, when they want to eat more fruit sometimes and they want to gain weight, you have to eat the more calorie dense fruit.
No,
you eat more bananas. You eat more.
Yeah, you have to eat fruit or plantains would be a good one. Plantains because they're actually a starchy food.
Yeah. So it's the fun part about calorie density, how you can make so many different adjustments even within eating to the left of the red line.
Yeah, absolutely. Beans are more calorically dense than squashes, for example.
Correct.
Speaking of plantains, here in Costa Rica, I eat plantains all the time. I just like peel a plantain and eat it just like a banana because it's tasty.
They're so
even here in Costa Rica, people look at me, they're like, what are you doing? You can't eat a plantain raw. You have to cook it. And I'm like, actually, you don't. And so even then, it's like, you're in the land of, lots of plantains. And there's still these misconceptions about what you can and what you can't do.
I think if you just go back to what Jack LaLanne said, if God made it, eat it. If man made it, don't eat it. And that's really, fruits, vegetables, whole grains, legumes, and maybe a little nuts and seeds and avocado. It's really that easy.
Yeah, it really can be that simple.
Unprocessed.
So, Chef AJ, can you maybe talk about the vitamin B12? What is the issue regarding vitamin B12 on a plant-based diet? And is it possible to get vitamin B12 while on a plant-based diet, or you have to supplement?
Well, I interviewed Dr. Goldhammer yesterday. I believe he's part of your summit.
Yes, he is.
And the thing is he recommends 1,000 micrograms of, he likes the methylcobalamin. I know Dr. Greger likes the cyano, but the truth is everybody should probably take it if they're on a plant-based diet. Not should, everybody really must, because people that aren't even plant-based get vitamin B12 deficiency. You don't get it from the food. What happens is, it's not that it's in the cow, but the cow is eating the grass, and it's a microorganism that's in the dirt, and we're eating the cow. So we're getting it in a very inefficient way. And because of our clean practices now, we're not eating things, everything is being washed so well, we're just not getting a lot of this. Now, it is in certain things. It's in fortified nutritional yeast. It's in fortified plant milks. But I don't think people can eat enough of these fortified B12 foods to get that 1,000 micrograms, which I believe Dr. Goldhammer says all you need is weekly. I take it every day because I'm the kind of person, if I don't do it every day, I'm going to forget. And, a lot of people say, well, then the plant-based diet can't be complete if we need that. No, it's farming that is changed, and it's the way we eat. We never had these kind of deficiencies in the old days, but the soil is just not as rich as it used to be, and so you don't eat animals to get the B12. If anything, eat dirt. I'm not telling you to eat dirt, but that's, so I don't always wash my organic produce. I don't do that.
Well, another tidbit to add to this equation here is that Dr. Greger actually has some videos about vitamin B12 absorption, and what the research has actually shown is that vitamin B12 receptors are in the end of your small intestine. And there's a very limited number of these vitamin B12 receptors. So it turns out that at any given time, the dosage of vitamin B12, irrespective of the dosage of vitamin B12 you take, you can only absorb 4 micrograms at a time. That's it. So if you're consuming 1,000 micrograms, you get 4 and you pee out 996.
And you're still paying for all 1,000.
And you're still paying for all one. So it's like you go to the store. I mean, I have vitamin B12 sitting right here. And this is a 1,000 microgram vitamin B12 supplement right here, right? And this is cyanocobalamin. Most of this is waste. I have very expensive pee now as a result of this. But the fact of the matter is, you want to make sure that you're getting a minimum of 4. And most supplements on the market are, 250 at the least. So the fact of the matter is, if you just take a supplement on a daily basis, once or sometimes even twice a day, to give yourself 4 in the morning and 4 in the evening, vitamin B12 deficiency becomes a thing of the past.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Dr. Goldhammer didn't start, he did an experiment and he never took it. It took him to develop a deficiency, it took him something like 30 years of not taking it.
Wow.
He actually documented this. He takes it now and he recommends everyone take it.
Okay, here's a question that we get all the time. When it comes to oil, what's better, coconut oil or cold pressed organic virgin olive oil?
I'll answer like Dr. Goldhammer. Would you rather be shot or hung? So, people could argue either way. Okay, just because something is less bad doesn't make it good. So I know that people that cook with oil, supposedly coconut oil has a better smoke point or whatever. But here's the thing. You don't need oil. It's not a whole food. It's not found in nature. It's going to injure your endothelial cells. It's going to make you probably overweight. Don't use any oil. They're going to teach you how to cook or watch my show. You don't need it for food to taste good. You don't need it for your health. If anything, it's deleterious to your health. People like it because of the high caloric density. They like it because it's 4,000 calories a pound, and that's why they like it. If you like it so much, I encourage you to drink it by itself because you won't be able to. It's an emetic. It will actually make you vomit. So what's better? I don't know. I mean, in some ways, I guess olive oil is better because coconut oil is 92% saturated fat. It's higher than saturated fat than lard. And all this nonsense that it's paleo. I mean, do you really think the cavemen, first of all, they didn't even live where the coconuts were, but you really think they were able to open them? mean, I went to culinary school and I had to open coconuts. It's not easy to open a coconut. And that should tell you right there that maybe you're really not supposed to eat it, or at least not eat it very often.
Correct. Okay, I love that response. I referred to olive oil the other day to one of my private clients. I referred to them as nutritional napalm, and he was like, "Oh, it's that bad for me?" And I said, "100%. It damages your endothelium, and it increases your risk for cardiovascular disease and insulin resistance." And one day, gone out of his diet.
Do you know? I don't know if you guys know who Dr. Wes Youngberg is, but he calls oil hypercaloric malnutrition.
Wes Youngberg is in the summit that people can get. If they take advantage of our offer, they get
hypercaloric malnutrition.
Full summit.
And there's another
Wes
doctor,
Youngberg's great interview.
Nick Delgado, where he actually gave himself diabetes by just drinking oil.
He has videos on YouTube.
He has a very popular YouTube, How to Become Diabetic in 6 Hours. He literally just ate olive oil and gave himself diabetes.
Yep. That's right.
That's the way to do it. Okay, let's talk about Candida. If I have Candida, what changes would you recommend for me?
I don't know. Sorry.
The Candida one it's pretty simple. If you eat to the left of the red line,
I'm guessing it's from sugar.
No, I mean it's a fat problem. It's absolutely a too much fat problem. If you get rid of the fat, you can solve your Candida problem. There's no question about it. It's very simple. And but one of the things people don't fully understand is people don't fully understand how much fat they're eating. And hopefully they got some guidance tonight to see, okay, wait a minute, there's actually more than I think in these foods. But until you objectively put your food intake into nutrition software, look, we're not telling people to do this all the time, like do it forever. We're doing it as an educational experience. It's to learn. You will be shocked at how much fat you're actually eating, exceeding our recommendation, a maximum of 15% of calories or a maximum of 30 total grams. People are exceeding that by a lot more than they think they are. So Candida can be fixed on a low-fat, whole food, plant-based diet, eating to the left of the red line.
Okay, I think this is the last question that we have here. Says Dr. AJ, what is your take on stress hormones and how they affect either fat storage or fat burning? Do you have any insight into that?
I don't. I can tell you that stress affects everything, and that's why I think the most important thing is to get the food right. Because even though if you eat perfectly, it's not going to necessarily change the level of stress you have, it just seems to mitigate it, meaning that whatever you have, your ability to deal with the stress is so much less when you have a calm, stable brain, a clear mind, an appropriate body weight. You know, exercise is, I think, the best thing. We didn't talk about that, but for diabetes, for any kind of being overweight, whether it's even not diabetes, that's one of the best things you can do. Because the thing is, exercise, especially when done first thing in the morning, will set the tone for the day, so that when you have stress, your ability to deal with it is going to be better. It's going to increase your self-esteem so that you can stick to a healthy eating plan. I'm sure that a lot of those things that you talk about, the stress hormones, the cortisol, I'm sure that's like a real thing. But the thing is even if that's why you think that's why you're overweight, things like that, I promise you, if you eat to the left of the red line, that issue you will not be overweight. I mean, you still may have stress, but you need to find ways to mitigate your stress. Unfortunately, most people in our society do it with food and alcohol.
Unfortunately.
Fantastic. Yes. I mean, there's no question. I mean, I think we see this a lot of times in our program. It's like, you know, you eat a low-fat, plant-based whole food diet, and you start to see a lot of these positive metabolic changes. You know, maybe you lose a little bit of weight. Maybe you lose a lot of bit of weight. Maybe your oral medication requirements come down. Maybe your insulin use comes down. Maybe your blood pressure comes down. Maybe your cholesterol comes down. And things generally move in the right direction. But then, despite all of that, I think one of the tendencies that people have is to live a really high-stress lifestyle. Not necessarily by choice, but they don't realize they're doing it. So it's not a conscious series of decisions. But once you sort of stop and say, oh, wait a minute, I'm trying to accomplish too much and I have too much responsibility in this world. And as a result of that, changing my lifestyle and being responsible for my friends and my family and my dad and my sister and going over here becomes too much. And then that can adversely affect your health in the long term. So, you know, if you find that you're in a situation where you are highly stressed, just know that it's the ultimate trump card when it comes to, you know, lifestyle change. And you could be doing a whole bunch of stuff to move your body, to be eating low-fat, plant-based, whole food diet, and you can be making a lot of positive changes. But if your stress levels are way too high, that's going to slow down your progress and could adversely affect you as well. So it's definitely something to pay attention to, and it's something that we can't say that eating a low-fat, plant-based, whole food diet itself is going to magically cure it, because it's something that you got to work on over the course of time.
It's so funny that people are saying they're afraid of fruit. What they should be afraid of is animal products and fat. That if you're going to be afraid of a food, be afraid of oil and animal products.
Absolutely. And yeah, it's a major concern. I mean, people come into our program, and no matter how many times we tell them, no matter how many webinars they've attended, how much of our videos they watch, how much research we show them, people are scared to do it. And we get it. And it's fun to sort of go through that process together, and to have some coaches with you along the way to measure the progress. Like, hey, maybe that first meal, it is high, but like, how high is okay? Am I going to be okay? Like, really, like, to be there every step of the way is we just love doing it. We're very passionate about it. That's why we created this program, so we could help people in the nuances. Like, everybody can read a book, they can watch a movie, but how do you like implement, or how do you do it in your life?
Group support's really important. It's interesting that these low carb diets, while they may give the diabetic better numbers, they'll also create cancer and diabetes at the same time from eating that diet.
You're trading one problem for a lot of other ones. No question.
Awesome. Well, this has been super fun. AJ, thank you so much for being here with us today. You're just a wealth of knowledge, and we're super fortunate to have you here, and we're honored to be able to share this time with you. So thank you.
Somebody asked a question about fasting, but it went by so fast, so I can't. The feed goes by fast.
It's hard to get to every.
But what they could
question.
do is Dr. Goldhammer will do a free consult to anyone that would like. So,
True North Health Center. Just Google True North Health Center.
Healthpromoting.com, and he'll tell you if True North is right for you.
Absolutely, it's great.
And one other thing I wanted to mention here is that in last year's summit, the 2017 summit, we actually did not interview Chef AJ because it was not because we had any ill will towards her. We just literally did not think of it. This year, Chef AJ is in our summit, and not only that,
you're one of our best.
I can honestly tell you that your interview was one of my absolute favorites to do. The energy was fantastic.
I didn't have a fat picture, but I could show you how.
Here, let me make you big on the screen, okay?
I forgot. These were my shorts, guys, a long time ago. So
oh my Lord.
They were pretty big, and I have smaller shorts now. So that's nice. That's what happens when you eat fruit. Don't be afraid. I've eaten a whole cantaloupe at one time. You know that? I'm
very proud of you.
If it's called the sugar kiss, it has to be the sugar. I've never eaten a whole watermelon. But cantaloupe, yes, the entire cantaloupe.
Yeah, I love that. It's great.
Okay, fantastic. So again, if you're interested in joining the Mastering Diabetes program, we are highly confident that if you put into play the recommendations that we set forth, that are also vetted by Chef AJ, that follow all of the calorie density principles that she just outlined, you're going to see an incredible amount of positive change. So if you're in a position where it's time to focus on your health, and you really want to reverse prediabetes or type 2 diabetes, or you want to get full control over type 1, this is your opportunity. So click on the image that's on your screen right now. Get started for either $29 a month or $249 for the year, where you can save 30%, and we will see you on the inside. Hope you guys have a great day.